Story 1. Echoes of the condemned Parisian predators in the heat. The sun beat down mercilessly on the crowded streets of Paris, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist with each passing hour. I had always been drawn to the city's charm, but on that particular day, a sense of unease lingered in the air like a thick fog. As I wandered through the bustling markets, the scent of fresh bread and exotic spices filled my nostrils, momentarily distracting me from the growing sense of dread that gnawed at the edges of my mind. It was then that I first caught sight of them, a group of shadowy figures lurking in the alleyways, their eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger that sent a shiver down my spine. I quickened my pace, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched, but the echoes of footsteps behind me only served to heighten my fear. I ducked into a narrow side street, hoping to lose my pursuers in the maze of winding lanes, but the shadows seemed to close in around me, suffocating me with their oppressive presence. Suddenly, a hand clamped down on my shoulder, sending a jolt of terror through my veins. I spun around to confront my attacker, but all I saw was a face shrouded in darkness, a cruel smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Your money or your life," he hissed, his voice cold and menacing. I fumbled for my wallet, my hands trembling as I handed it over to him. The other figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glittering with a feral intensity that made my blood run cold. In that moment, I knew that I was at the mercy of the Parisian predators, condemned to a fate that I could not escape. As they melted back into the darkness, leaving me shaken and alone, I realized the true horror of my situation. The streets of Paris, once so familiar and welcoming, had become a hunting ground for those who thrived on fear and desperation. And as I stood there, a mere shadow of my former self, I knew that the echoes of that encounter would haunt me for the rest of my days. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 2. Tragedy at Thanksgiving: The Family Curse. You find yourself standing in the midst of a bustling Thanksgiving parade, surrounded by cheerful families and colorful floats. The air is filled with the scent of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie, laughter echoing through the streets. But beneath the facade of holiday cheer lies a dark tale of tragedy and the looming shadow of a family curse. As you wander through the crowded streets, a sense of unease washes over you. You can't shake the feeling that something sinister is lurking just out of sight, waiting to strike. Memories of past Thanksgivings flood your mind, each one tainted by a sense of impending doom. You recall the story of the Anderson family, who were traveling to visit relatives for Thanksgiving when tragedy struck. Their car was ambushed by a group of ruthless thieves, intent on robbing them of their valuables. In the chaos that ensued, shots were fired, and the family was torn apart by violence. The curse that had plagued the Andersons for generations seemed to have reared its ugly head once again, bringing death and despair in its wake. As you delve deeper into the story, you uncover a web of betrayal and greed that stretches back decades, each Thanksgiving marked by tragedy and loss. The more you learn, the more you realize that the curse is not just a tale spun to frighten children. It is a very real force, driving people to commit unspeakable acts in the name of greed and desperation. The Anderson family was just one of many victims, their lives torn apart by forces beyond their control. As you stand in the midst of the festive parade, surrounded by smiling faces and joyful laughter, you can't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The curse still lingers in the air, a dark cloud hanging over the holiday celebrations. Will you be the next victim, caught in the grip of a fate that cannot be escaped? Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 3. Shadows on Main Street, the haunting of Salem House. As I walked down Main Street in the quaint town of Salem, a chill ran down my spine. The houses, with their dark wooden facades and overgrown gardens, seemed to loom over me like silent sentinels of a forgotten past. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that danced eerily on the cobblestone pavement. I had heard whispers of Salem House, a grand mansion at the end of Main Street that had been abandoned for decades. Rumors swirled about the tragic fate of its former inhabitants, a wealthy family who had mysteriously disappeared one stormy night. Some said they had been victims of a brutal robbery, their treasures stolen and their lives taken in a cruel twist of fate. Curiosity got the best of me, and I found myself standing before the imposing gates of Salem House. The wrought iron was twisted and rusted, as if trying to keep intruders at bay. Ignoring the warning signs, I pushed the gate open and stepped onto the overgrown path leading to the mansion. The air grew colder as I approached the front door, which creaked open with a deafening groan. Inside, the grand foyer was shrouded in darkness, the only light filtering in through dusty windows. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of my own footsteps echoing through the empty halls. I made my way through the labyrinthine corridors, each room more decrepit than the last. It was as if time had stood still in Salem House, preserving the memories of its tragic past. As I reached the upper floors, a sense of unease washed over me, a feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. In one of the bedrooms, I stumbled upon a hidden door that led to a secret chamber. Inside, I found a collection of priceless artifacts, glittering in the dim light. But my joy quickly turned to dread as I heard footsteps approaching from the darkness. Panic set in as I realized I was not alone in Salem House. Shadows moved along the walls, whispering in a language long forgotten. I tried to flee, but the doors were locked, trapping me in this house of horrors. As the shadows closed in around me, I knew that my fate was sealed. The ghosts of Salem House had claimed another victim, a trespasser who dared to disturb their eternal slumber. And as I succumbed to the darkness, I could only pray for a swift end to my torment. Anonymous Spectator Story.